Hello, people, and how do you do? I'd like to introduce myself to you. That was a cheer, I think, from high school. I was not on the cheerleading squad. Donna asked, yeah, I'm spying on you guys before I came in. Don't know why, but Donna said, where is everybody? I had some trouble. Well, first of all, more people are turning up. Second, everybody was here, who was here. So that's cool. Web Bixby in the house, Frank, Donna, Bill, John, other people. There was actually a little bit of a problem setting up the stream today, so I didn't get the notification out as early as I normally do. It's weird because occasionally YouTube will do this thing where like schedule it, and so you do, and then it doesn't show you that it's scheduled. So when that's happened, I've actually had to schedule 3 different live things, and then as soon as I see all 3, I cancel 2. So that might have messed part of it up. On the other hand, people might be taking Friday off from my this. Who knows? Anyway, we'll do a show today, and then we'll talk afterwards, and maybe more people will turn up. And if they don't, we'll talk about them. That'll learn them. All right. Hold on. Wait, am I recording? I wasn't. Oh, thank goodness. Because then I have to listen again. Okay. Stand by. A bad day for Big Sur and feedback from you or people a lot like you. It's Friday the 13th of November 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. And me without my hockey mask. Hi, it's Ken, welcoming you into this edition of macOS Can Live. Ray, by the way, Ken Ray. Don't confuse me with Ken Berry. Why is Ken Berry the only Ken I can think of? Coming up today, we're going to take some feedback from you guys guys and gals, who have actually made the move to Big Sur. I know it was a rough trip for some. Some people decided not to try to beat the traffic, and they seem to have had the best days. We'll talk about that in a bit. First, though, I came across an editorial on Thursday's problems. That kind of, that place that we've talked about before, got in my craw. So we'll talk about that a bit. Before we even get to that, though, Cult to Mac says, we've been given the all clear now. Apple has now said, go ahead, go to Big Sur. Go on, I dare ya. They didn't say I dare you. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Because then you'd be like, I don't know if they're actually saying it's okay or not. After Apple released the major Mac update Thursday, many users reported problems with downloads and installations, which we talked about yesterday on macOS Can Live and also on Friday's macOS Can. Early Friday, Apple support responded to a slew of complaints on Twitter with variations on the following message. The outage lasted longer than originally thought. Please restart your Mac and try again. DMS if you're having any trouble. And it appears at that point, nobody was. As I say, I talked to, I got some feedback from some people who downloaded or updated or whatever you want to call it today. And so we'll hear their feedback later. And maybe it was you, or maybe it was someone just like you. Now, I don't know who William Gallagher is, and I'm not making fun of William Gallagher. And, a lot of what he says in this editorial that he wrote for Apple Insider, I actually agree with. It seems a bit caught in the moment, might be a good way to say it. Here's what William Gallagher wrote for Apple Insider. The headline, What Happened During the Troubled Big Sur Launch and Why Apple Can't Let It Happen Again. Okay, I agree with that part. Apple should not let that happen again. They should do their best to make sure that what happened yesterday doesn't happen again. And for people who don't remember, you couldn't download Big Sur, and that's part of the problem. You also couldn't run third-party apps, and that is, I think, a bigger problem. And you couldn't pay with Apple Pay. And depending what you were trying to do and where you were, I think that's actually the biggest problem of the 3, because obviously you're tied into the Apple ecosystem somewhat if you are using Apple Pay, but you're not necessarily the kind of person who is, hanging on everything Apple does. We'll go through some of the stuff that he wrote, and then we'll probably touch on some of those again. Apple's Big Sur update needed to go smoothly, and instead it caused disruption worldwide, even for users who weren't trying to download it. Okay, that is bad. I will grant you. Anyone can make mistakes, he says, and very few companies can deliver a revamped operating system to millions of users without problems. However, Apple is one of those firms that can do it. It's one that has done it extraordinarily successfully. It's also the one that on Thursday got it startlingly wrong. In 2020, at the dawn of Apple Silicon, when consumer trust needs to be maintained at all cost, during a big hardware transition, Apple cannot allow this week's errors that prevented some folks from launching the apps already installed on non-Big Sur machines and Big Sur installations to fail to ever happen again. Okay, well, they shouldn't, and obviously they're trying not to, right? Now, looking at the release, he says that the OS itself was unchanged since Monday, the 9th of November. He wonders why they didn't go ahead and release it on the 10th. But then he answers his own question by saying he knew that they were going to put up a bunch of Macs for sale on the 10th and didn't want those two things to, butt up against each other. You don't want it so that you can't download your operating system and also buy new Macs. You're trying to get money in the door, you're going to do the new Mac thing. Plus, I don't know, probably they were worried about a crush of people. And we'll talk about why there might have been a crush of people this time, more than in other times. You can't fault any company for balancing its resources, for deploying its efforts strategically, but this was part of the transition to Apple Silicon, a gigantic move that Apple has to get right. What's more is it's a gigantic move that Apple had already done a great job of convincing us that it would get right. Even if you weren't using Macs around the transitions to PowerPC or Intel, Apple's really well-presented explanations of what it's doing when and why are remarkable. Those explanations, this expectation Apple has built up so well, they're all remarkably punctured when the company stumbles. It's not as if this were just something like Big Sur taking a long time to download because of demand, though that was part of it. It was the problems, of course, with Apple Pay, which he actually doesn't talk about the Apple Pay thing here. I think that one is forgettable. They're all forgettable. That's the thing. I mean, it's easy in the moment to say, well, this is terrible and they can't let this happen again. And of course, they can't let that happen again. But you know who's going to remember this 2 weeks from now? William Gallagher, me, maybe you. We'll all remember that it happened, but I don't think we're all going to go, I don't know. I never try to update on the first day, with the exception of occasionally iOS. I never try to update on the first day because you might run into these kind of problems. I don't know. He goes on to say Apple didn't tell users what was going on. It didn't change error messages to ask people to try later. It took users to figure out what was going so wrong, and it took users to devise this workaround. It's also a little too easy, he says, to blame the problems on just how many people were trying to download macOS Big Sur. This was a failing, and it isn't an excuse to claim Big Sur is so popular. It's a failing, yes. It's not nearly as big a deal, I think, as he's making it seem. He says there was mistakes. He doesn't know what those mistakes were, but they can't happen again, and Apple should be held accountable. And what I thought about was, remember the time that iOS bricked a bunch of phones? If you have your phone set to automatic update, it automatically updated to an operating system version that bricked people's phones. That left people without communication in who knows what situations. And I think it was iPhone 6, might have been iPhone 6S. That was a huge deal. That was a huge deal. And who knows when it happened. Remember the time Samsung was making phones that were catching people's pants on fire and forcing pilots to land planes in cities they hadn't originally intended to go to? That was the end for Samsung. Never hear about them, except for the fact that they just sold more phones last quarter in the US than iPhone for the first time in a number of years. It's bad when stuff like this happens. It's bad when stuff like this happens. It's not the end of the world when stuff like this happens. Most of the planet, look, this guy writes for Apple Insider. Most of the planet doesn't even know that Apple is moving to Apple Silicon. I would venture to say that there are a lot of iPhone users who don't know that Apple is moving the Mac to Apple Silicon. We get caught up in the thing we get caught up in. Look, when I was doing a Star Trek podcast, man, were they ruining the world. It's the thing that's in front of you, it's the thing that bothers you. The ones that I think are more serious are what was it? It was a notary server ID. I can't remember what the exact terminology was, but basically, if you already had apps on your computer, I assume this is a security thing that your computer is constantly checking to make sure that the apps that are running on your computer are safe to run on your computer, that something hasn't happened, that nobody has done anything nefarious to take over your computer. So your computer is checking now and then to make sure that the apps that it's running are actually legit, right? That they are what they're supposed to be. And yesterday, there were so many strains on Apple's system that it couldn't check. And when it couldn't check, it wouldn't run them. Now, what you could do was either use a little snitch to sort of limit that part of the communication between your computer and whatever Apple was trying to communicate with. Apologies. The other thing you could do was you could disconnect from the internet. Now, of course, you don't know that that's why it's not working. All of a sudden, it's not working. And so he's right. Figuring that out would have been a difficult thing for people to do. Um, I think that part might freak people out because we tend to think, well, I've downloaded this onto my computer. It's going to run now. I don't think about the fact that my computer might actually be, double checking with somebody every now and then to go, are you sure? And if they don't get an answer, they're like, well, if you're not sure, then I'm just not going to do it. The one that I can sort of make the, sad PSA for is the one where somebody is standing in line trying to buy, medicine or formula or food, and they want to use Apple Pay and they can't, and they want to use Apple Pay and they can't. Chances are they have some other payment method that they can use. They might not want to, but chances are they do have another payment method they can use. There's also a really good chance that they're just going to think, oh, this is one of those things that happens. I don't think they're going to look at it as a failure on Apple's part. It is a failure on Apple's part, but it was a momentary few hours. It was a relatively short-lived failure on Apple's part that most people aren't even going to identify as a failure on Apple's part. Now, none of this is letting them off the hook for what happened. They should have been prepared. They should have been ready. It is not the end of any world. None. So I did wonder one thing yesterday, and part of it was actually born of a conversation I was having with a friend of mine. Why was the crush so bad yesterday? Apple certainly has done, for the Apple watching world, has done a lot to try to excite people about this, but they do that every time. And I don't remember, I think we talked about it here yesterday. I don't remember there being a time where a Mac OS update ground everything to a halt. But COVID-19 grounded everything to a halt. If you're like an avid Apple fan, right? Chances are, even if you're the most avid Apple fan, you weren't staying home to wait for the next Mac operating system update. You might read about it in the day, maybe, while you were at work, at lunch, something like that. You might try it that night. Although I was thinking about it yesterday, it always seemed to me that if you wanted to get a Mac OS update, you either get it as soon as it comes out, if you want to be that fast, or you wait a day. The times that you don't do it are 4 p.m. on the East Coast to 10 p.m. on the West Coast, because all the people who have been waiting all day to get home and download it then go home and try to download it. And that slows everything down. You can't use your computer, right? But we're all working from home now. Not all of us, but a lot of people are working from home now. And it's nothing to, set aside time to update your computer. You can call that work time if you want to, because it's your computer, you use it for work, and you want to go ahead and update that. Or, you're over there working on your work computer, but you go ahead and run the update on your home computer. It used to be that a lot of the people that were interested in doing this were someplace else in the middle of the day and couldn't do this in the middle of the day. Yesterday, you had the avid people who sit there and wait for it, so they can download it just as soon as it's available. And then you also have the other people who would casually do it when they got home, but they're at home because that's where work is and that's where school is. Am I saying that's the reason? No. I don't know what the reason was, but like I say, talking to a friend of mine about it, they brought that up, and I thought that makes a tremendous amount of sense, as much as any of it does anyway. Coming up in a moment, we'll do your feedback. But first, I don't know. I guess there are other shows I could tell you about, but I do that a lot. Here, let me really quickly. If you have found this show on YouTube and don't know about the other stuff that I do, the whole reason that this show is called Mac OS Ken Live is because I have a show that I do called Mac OS Ken. Turns 15 years old this January. So I've been doing that for a day or two. Actually, been doing that for 5 days a week for about 15 years now. So if you don't know what that is, I'd love it if you found it. I actually put the audio of it up here on YouTube. So youtube.com/KenRay, or you can download it wherever you get podcasts. Overcast, Sidecast, Roundcast, Castfly, Flycast, Casting Call, I don't know, Apple Podcast, Ghana. I know that is actually one. Deezer. I think I'm on Deezer. Amazon Podcasts. So yeah, look for macOS Ken if you're not subscribed to it. And then if you would subscribe to it, well, then I wouldn't be talking about you next time I do this. Right, let's do feedback really quickly. We'll do this in sort of like the order that it happened, because I did get email from people who were trying to download it and update yesterday to Big Sur, and then I got some who, try again. And I got some people who are patient and waited till this morning. Michael wrote in the thick of the issue on Thursday saying consistently fails after 5 failures over 4+ hours from 2 in the afternoon to 6:15 Central. It's failing nationwide to download. Not looking good for Apple. Michael, by the way, will remember this forever. I know Michael. Michael retains Apple history. I don't think he'll hold it against Apple forever, but Michael is not one of the people who will forget that this happened. He can probably tell me which iOS update bricked the iPhone however many years ago. I know it was over 5 years ago, so forgive me. My cutoff is like 6 months. If it happened before 6 months ago, are you sure it happened? Because it doesn't sound familiar. Carl wrote to me on Friday to talk about his adventures in updating on Thursday. Did the upgrade yesterday, he said, on Friday, so talking about Thursday. Took all day to download and for several hours told me that there was an error and try again later. Tried again about 6 Pacific and downloaded successfully. Seems to be working this morning with no problems. So says Carl. Jeff in San Diego. I had no issues at all with upgrading this morning. See, Jeff waited. Jeff's a smart man. I had no issues at all with upgrading this morning. Took about 15 minutes to download, and I was back up and running maybe 45 minutes after that. So an hour total, says Jeff. I love the look of the interface. After using iOS 14 for a while, Big Sur's interface looks very familiar. Paul is not nearly as happy. Installed Big Sur on my 2019 MacBook Pro, left my 2019 iMac on Catalina, he says. Hate the app icon design. Okay. Everything does seem much faster, he says. Some third-party apps and utilities broke. That is a big bummer. Fans are screaming with only Finder running. SMC reset had no effect. I wish I had waited, but I can still work, says Paul. So there's the bright side, right? Well, I hate it, but I can still do my job. Thanks a lot, Paul. One more, Stefan. Once it actually installed after 7:30 p.m., so apparently he did this on Thursday, no problems. Not much time with it yet, but my key Adobe apps all work great, he says, which is good news for me. He's using Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. Presently surprised by the interface changes. Not sure I was going to, but I kind of like them. So you'll have a better time than Paul. Tried to figure out, I went to the Adobe Audition page and points off. I mean, this is a big deal for some people. Now, this is not a failing forever for Adobe or anything, but this is a problem I've actually had with Adobe a few times. I can't get a clear read on whether or not Adobe Audition works. And that is the one app about which I care from Adobe. I care about Audio Hijack Pro, which I went to their website. I think it's Rogue Amoeba. Went to their website and they're like, yeah, it works with Big Sur. Go ahead. Went to Adobe site and they had some message like, most of our Creative Cloud apps work. Thanks. Okay. So hopefully roll the bones. I did actually get in touch with a friend of mine who has had no compatibility issues with any apps that he runs. And he and I work in a similar way. So I guess I'm not too worried about that. Also got in touch with Adobe on Twitter. I still feel like their answer wasn't really committal, and maybe they're afraid to commit because they don't want me coming after them for anything, like I've got power. But they basically said, seems to be working. They said they haven't seen any issues yet. They said they'll, notify people if there are. They said, be our guinea pig, Ken. So I probably will. I think I'm going to do it tonight. So if there's a big problem, I can take a couple of days to fix it before I come back to do macOS Ken on Monday and macOS Ken Live on Monday and all the other stuff that I work on. Just because I've done feedback here, by the way, doesn't mean don't want to hear your feedback, excuse me, especially when you have a few more days to actually play with it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't. If you're still having problems downloading after Friday, I guess go ahead and tell me that too, because it sounds like that's going to be anomalous. It sounds like that's going to be anomalous. But I do want to hear your feedback around the whole Big Sur thing. So a couple ways to do that. You can leave a comment right here on this video. You can leave me a comment on Twitter as well. I am at macOSKen, MACOSKEN, at macOSKen on Twitter. And of course, you can email me. Those are my favorites because I can take time and, info at macosken.com, INFO, info at macosken.com. If you're here live in the chat room, please stick around in the chat room. I will be by momentarily to hang out and crack wise. If you're not here in the chat room, you can't hear this right now. So sometime. And then you'll be able to hear this when I say it. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you soon. Weirdo. Not you. Hold on. Yay. All right. Turn that off. Move that around. Get my glasses. See what's going on with you guys. Frank's cutoff is 6 minutes. I don't know what that means. 6 minutes ago, then are you sure? Who did I not say hello to? Rob. Hey, Rob, how's it going? Oh, John's still waiting for his blue phone. Darn it, I meant to talk about that. Somebody sent me feedback. I think I decided not to because the whole rest of the show was Big Sur. Apparently, John, you're going to love your blue phone because somebody wrote to me and they were like, yeah, I ordered the blue one. I was a bit nervous because some of the pictures look very different and then I got it and it's wonderful. I think that was just the iPhone 12 mini though, not the Pacific blue of the iPhone 12 Pro. So you'll have to let us know. Kind of annoyed that my HomePod mini still has no, it still says they're just processing it, which is kind of a drag because, I ordered my HomePod mini a week ago today. People ordered their Macs Wednesday or Tuesday rather, and the people who ordered their Macs are already getting notifications that their stuff's getting ready to ship, and my HomePod mini may not even exist yet. It's supposed to get here between the 18th and the 20th. I'll keep you posted. Because why not? Oh, interesting. Anthony says, I wondered about this, Anthony, because I have not seen Pages, Numbers, and Keynote turn up as updates on my system yet. Anthony says that GarageBand needs Big Sur to update. Webb Bixby. Ken Osmond did play Eddie Haskell. That's right. Another famous Ken. Passed away earlier this year, I believe. Late last year or earlier this year. Kind of a bummer. My grandfather was a painter. His name's Ken Walsh. Wasn't famous. He was kind of famous in some circles, I suppose. So there's one. D Park saying hello a few minutes ago. Hello. Do. It was this year. Donna says Ken Osmond did die. Yeah, he was a cop, right? Eddie Haskell. Eddie Haskell was a police officer. Go figure. And then he went back to acting, of course, when they rebooted Leave It to Beaver. Hey, Laura. This is the scintillating conversation for which people tune in, excuse me. Laura asked, did anybody catch the fact that YouTube had an outage on Wednesday? Yes. Luckily, it wasn't during this time, but yes, I did see that. And of course, like a dope, then I just started going to YouTube trying to check every video. Not mine, but I was just like, really? YouTube is down? That never happens. Happened Wednesday. You're buffering. Ah, darn it. Really? Did that happen? How long was the stream is not working? Okay. Oh, interesting. What do you do a YouTube live for, Laura? Sorry, Laura says that she was actually in the middle of a YouTube live when YouTube went down on Wednesday. She might be typing right now what that is. I'm kind of curious. And I'm going to wait about 30 more seconds to see if I can find out. There we go. Wasn't me. Dr. David Snyder's YouTube channel. All right. Interesting. Right. All right. So I'm going to go try to get some work done so that I can, mess around with my computer, make it a whole new computer, hopefully. Not whole new, but you know what I mean. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me again. And yeah. Right. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're asking, Laura. Right. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Yes. I will talk to you. I'll talk to you Monday. It was kind of a flame out at the end there. Sorry about that. I got lost in my head for a moment. Yeah. Take care, guys. I will talk to you very soon.